So in our 7-day somatic challenge, the main focus on that is changing your state to one that feels more expansive, lighter, more positive. So there's an experience there of being able to take yourself up a grade, because it's a great starting point. Because when we start any journey from that point of, where do I want to direct my energy? Why am I doing this? And realizing that pretty quickly you can bring in a feeling that you would like to create. The reason our approach comes from that basis is because when we begin to work with people that are blocked or stuck or wanting to move forward, what often happens is they're really clear on what's wrong, what they don't want, what hasn't worked in the past. Often it might be a particular traumatic experience that started something and is now really being held in a pattern in their lives. And the tendency tends to be to look into what needs to be fixed without really having this clear foundation of, what does it feel like to be well? What does it feel like to be able to get to peace in order to have clarity, in order to open out your options, to feel safe enough to actually change? So if we start by going back, starting by trying to get through blocks, understand them, we actually haven't got a strong foundation, which is going to give us the resilience and the continuity and the ability to be able to sustain a new way of being. Does that make sense so far, saying why we're doing it? Okay, so.
And I think like it's interesting as well, because like in a lot of my like coaching practice, I see this in clients all the time. They come to me with these massive goals, these huge intentions, this is where I want to be and this is what I'm going to do about it. And while that's amazing and valuable and so important, often when we get started with the process, we realize the problem really, really quickly. And a lot of the time it is the lack of that foundation. So, things like, are you sleeping enough? And often I'll work with CEOs from massive companies who have these huge lofty goals. And a lot of the time we only really need to look at the basics, get the basics in place. Are you feeling well? Are you managing your stress? Are you nourishing your body in the right way? And so many different pieces. And actually, when those really basic, simple things are in place, they tend to just achieve those goals naturally, or they naturally become a focus. They're naturally energized, they're naturally motivated, and less of that accountability and discipline and force sometimes, which like how other clients would see it before they start working in like with the coaching. The less of that is needed. And I think that I just see that time and time again with clients. Big lofty goals, let's go back to the basics. And it is when you're well, when you're strong in your body, then you're able to actually move the things forward that you want to.
Yeah, and often, the first thing is, even before that feeling well, just go into peace. If you find peace, you find that expansion, and then you know what it feels like to feel good. You can keep bringing that feeling into your body, and then that gives you the resilience. So sometimes, well, very often this can happen, and I'm sure many people have experienced this, that you start something, it feels really, really good, and then for some reason you just fall off the wagon, or suddenly something will come along. It's an old pattern, it throws you, it knocks you back. However, if you spend more time in that place of going back to a practice, finding peace, keep practicing that in your body, just go back to that place, what you'll find is you'll start to build up a strength and a resilience and the tools to be able to truly face something when it comes up and move through it. Because the other thing that happens is we do get addicted to our old stories. So often when we begin this change, that old story comes up because a part of you goes, hang on, I've not felt that for a while. I've not felt that jealousy or that insecurity. And it's a natural thing. We get addicted to the feelings that have become like these companions in life. However, when you just bring yourself back to that midline again and that neutral state, that's when you start to put this board down that gets stronger and stronger and stronger, until when you look at something, you can really shift through it. And I think often the real stumbling block is, I've got to deal with this issue now, with this trauma. I've got to go into it. I've got to wring out my soul. And, maybe sometimes that is, that there are no absolutes whatsoever. I personally feel that's the hardest and the longest route. If you go back, you're not putting a plaster on a broken leg. You're not ignoring it. What you're saying is, okay, I'm acknowledging that that's there, but I'm going to get myself into a really good place before I go to that. And that's where somatics are fantastic, because, and somatics being a body felt experience, so a place where, a time where you can use yoga, meditation, movement, breath work, anything that you can put a clear intention with, direct your energy and build and change your state into one that is lighter, stronger, more optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I also love about one of the other tools that we work with, that you specialize in, Hannah, is human design. And what I love about human design is you start by following what really works for you, what the flow is. And it makes so much sense, because the more you do that, the more you learn, okay, that really makes sense to me, that works for me, this is the way life communicates with me. And you begin that journey of actually building the positive feelings that make you stronger, that give you that sense of curiosity to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that, like, from an energetic perspective as well, and human design teaches this a lot, as well as somatics, is when you have that strong foundation, when you're listening, when you're conscious, when you're aware, and you're really paying attention to your energy and what it's communicating to you, and you have that strong foundation to be able to do that, when you do take action in the world, there's energy with you, right? So when you're kind of in that state where you're kind of running on empty, when you start taking action, when energy isn't behind you, it's almost kind of like thrashing around in the world and nothing's actually happening. Whereas when you're well, when you're strong, then when you either come to look at the things that maybe need addressing and blocks that need to be looked at, then you have energy with you to actually be able to address those and make a change and move forward, as well as taking action in your life as well, right? When you don't have that strong foundation and you're taking action from a place where you're running on empty, energy's not with you, and it's not necessarily, or it may not necessarily have the impact that you want it to have. Whereas when you've got that strength there, that's what can really impact and create change.
Yeah. And also you've got practical tools that you can turn to, because it's not necessarily about just conjuring up this, okay, I just need to feel good and go forward. There are practical things that you can do in order to change your physiology. With human design, that there are things that you can, ways to direct your energy, that will experiment with this because this really suits your design. And more often than not, it helps shift the focus somewhere else and allow something to open up and flow. And I think it's really more important than ever, because we are definitely in a really trauma-informed culture, where we have definitely taken that big step towards, stiff upper lip, let's just go on, and not recognizing that actually, that there are like beliefs and traumas, experiences that are locked in the body that really cloud our judgment, that block off our potential, that will just keep us being safe in life and not really allowing that curiosity or the ability to explore a new way of being. So we have taken that step of, let's acknowledge this is really important. However, we've also in my opinion, we've got too much of what's wrong, and the fact that we break easily, and once we're broken, we've got this trauma locked in us. And it's not necessarily true, you know, or yes, that can happen, but also we've got an incredible core strength that holds all our potential, that is not, has never changed, not it never gets conditioned. It's a state that looks for joy, that wants you to follow your heart, and we can tap into that resource. And when we let that resource lead us, that also gives us a strength. And that's very much in systems such as the 5 elements of astrology, of human design, that you tap into what's unique about you? How do you respond? Where are the tools and techniques that you can really gather in order to keep coming back to that place, to keep moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because in my my coaching practice that I have separate from my Handpicked life, I work quite closely with people who have ADHD, and one of the problems sometimes I see with that is how, again, it's that looking at what's wrong. It's like, okay, here's my diagnosis, here's symptoms to be managed, and I think that having that perspective sometimes, and by the way, like, you know, diagnosis can be incredibly validating and really, really important for people to understand, oh, this is why that I am the way I am. However, there is a point where that can sometimes become limiting as well, because the people are looking at what's wrong and how can I, you know, how can I just deal with this problem that I'm always going to have, and these parts of me are issues that need to be fixed. And I think that's why systems like human design and astrology can be so helpful, because they describe similar traits as being part of you for a purpose, and they offer you a way to work with them in a way that is like, oh, this is who you are, this is how you're unique, let's enhance that, let's make that bigger. And I think a lot of the time it's conditioning that tells us that these certain traits are wrong or bad or are to be resisted. Like, I was doing a session with someone recently who was talking about like them being lazy, and them being really creative about finding the easiest way to do things as a bad thing. And when we unpacked that a little bit, we were like, well, actually, why is that a bad thing? You're really good at that. And actually, there's certain areas of life where you're really consistent because of that. This is a strength. It's just, or maybe it doesn't serve you sometimes. I always say every weakness is a strength that's out of balance. And I think that all these traits we have within us as potential, when we're looking at them as problems, that limits us. But when we see them as potentials, that's where we can really make the most of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what happens as well is, in our culture, there are certain types that will be the people that will go out and do the research and write the books and say this is the way it is, and that often can be really true for them. But I think the danger is in saying this is it across the board, because I know in the primary modes, for example, it reminded me of visuals. If you're a visual person, when you go under stress, you really need someone to look you in the eyes in order for you to keep your clarity of thought and to be able to stay on track. And they're the kind of people that would say, look at me when I'm talking to you. And they're the kind of people that would say, if people can't look you in the eye, then they're shifty. And in actual fact, like, for example, if you're a tonal person, in order to keep your energy intact, especially when we're talking really when you're under stress, you'll naturally want to turn your eyes down. You know, as a tonal, the hearing's really important. It's almost like they turn your ear to you. So for a visual, that would probably look pretty shifty, but for a tonal, they're not. They're actually gathering their energy in order to find their strength. And I know, like, we used to work in schools, and that would be something that would be really often difficult to hear. You know, like a teacher, look at me when I'm talking to you. I want everybody's eyes on me, and it doesn't always work for everybody. You know, I know I am a visual actually, but I know if I'm learning, I actually want to fiddle and look away and look down. That's my way of really being able to take information. And I've always felt like, oh, I'll get distracted easily, or I can't really sit and do this in this way. So I think that's the beauty of these systems as well, that they put that really positive slant in. This is how you get the best out of you.
Mm.
This is how this is what is really beneficial for your energy. Go experiment with that. And then while you're doing that, when you get into somatics and you really practice those, the feelings, the sensations, the habits, you can really get that into your subconscious more and more, because most of the time it is just about those conditionings that have, we've gone off track away from our true nature. And it's about reconditioning that to really going from our uniqueness and bringing in our full potential. So,
Definitely.
you
And
know, it's a lovely place to start.
definitely. And I think that that piece, what you were saying there about like they help you to understand. I think this is the thing, these modalities, like the Chinese medicine wheel elements, where you can understand your personality, human design, astrology, they give you the self-awareness and the primary sensory modes as well. Like they give you the self-awareness and they help you to see the potential you have within you. But the somatics is like, okay, well, what do we do about that? And I think that's when that piece comes in, and it's like, okay, these are the potentials. This gives me the consciousness and awareness. And then somatics enable you to get into the body, to direct the energy, to build the strong foundation so you can explore these things, lean into them, enhance them. And the somatic piece is so important. Even like, I know, in fact, it would be really interesting for you quickly to just talk about like the foundations of what somatics help with, things like when we're working regularly with somatics, we're sedating the stress response. If that's something that's needed, we're working with like the cross crawl to get the hemispheres of the brain talking. Like if you could kind of just talk us through the basics and the foundations of what somatics actually help us with, as well as building consciousness and things like that.
Yeah, because I mean, somatics get you to that back into the center, so almost like your baseline. Because if we don't start a dialogue with the body and we're trying to shift something, then we need to get ourselves into a place where we feel safe enough to move forward. So somatics speak to the body in a way that, in a language that it understands. And we can do this really physically by sedating meridians that govern the stress response, by working with particular organs that relate to different emotions in the body. So we can get really specific on creating more space, safety, ease in the body without necessarily getting lost in a story. The stories are held within you anyway, and your experiences, your the way you've been conditioned, it's all there. But there's a wisdom in your body that knows how to open that. And when you start to use somatic, it's a really intricate system that speaks directly to different parts of you, that relate to different emotions in the body. There'll be different systems that hold particular habits. So when you start to relax and get beneath the layers, simply by doing posture, simply by the way you breathe, simply by using meditation practices that bring you to that place of calm, there are also ways where you really can go into the story, but at the same time change your physiology as you're going into that story, which is a really lovely way to work, because you can be really honest about something. This is the way I'm feeling. This is what's happening. But at the same time, you almost begin to change the past, because you're changing your body's response to that, to say, that's no longer traumatic. It's part of me. It's just a story, but it doesn't induce this response in me. And changing that response so it's one where it feels more expansive. And what's interesting, when you do that as well, you engage the mind in a way that you're able to see things in it. You can see the lessons in things. You can see the value in something, or you can see that it has no value in you continuing to keep telling and keeping that story with you. So that's really, those are the kind of things that somatic practices unlock, because they're going way beyond, they bypass the conscious mind and get deep into what's really being held. So just really on a simple example, you know, that when you may know that you don't need to feel jealous, but your body's saying something completely different. You know, your body, you feel jealous, you know, there's pointless getting angry right now, you're feeling angry. So we can often be aware of that, and it's not a great way to feel, because you're not in control of yourself. You know, you're not orchestrating your energy, and somatics gently allow you to start to orchestrate your own body and the way you feel. And they also give you that pause before you react. So you're not acting out again what you've done again and again. You have a choice. You're able to respond. And in fact, if I was going to say anything, that the prize that somatic practice give you is choice. You know, that you begin to go, oh, that's happened. How am I choosing to respond? What am I choosing to do? And it's that feeling of having autonomy over yourself and your life that opens up the opportunities. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I love what you said about orchestrating your life. And I think that's the key part that somatics brings. It's like, you know, all of these systems give you the knowledge, but then again, it's like, okay, but how do we become the embodiment of that? And that is often the piece that we personally in our work see people struggle with all the time, is like that ability to be able to be like, yeah, I know I want to do this. And then we consciously know, right? But it's about getting the subconscious aligned with the conscious and getting you behind you, if that makes sense.
mm,
And you know, I kind of just want to like, I'd bring in a bit of an example there just to kind of illustrate what you were talking there, because I think somatics also gives such a holistic um view, and you can use them really diagnostically as well. And like, I know you've kind of given a very general overview there, but something specific that I wanted to kind of bring in is like, for example, when you're working with somatics, if fear is something that's coming up a lot in your life, or anger, there's certain meridians that work with certain organs that can help you to move through that emotion, that can help you to rebalance, or that can help you, you know, maybe if something like fear and courage is related to the bladder and the kidney, for example.
mm,
So you can support those energetically through energy medicine, but you can also work with those within your physiology as well through lots of different things. So these systems, that all giving us like diagnostic tools to help understand and curate and craft the life that you really want to live, basically.
mm. Yeah, and just to let people know as well, within our membership platform, we've got an amazing diagnostic tool that helps you if you're wanting to work with something in particular, whether it's anxiety, fear, addiction, jealousy, or any kind of emotional habit. You can use our diagnostic tool to actually bring up a practical session for you, so a class that you can then work with over time. And that, because once you understand that, then you're able, well, actually it's not even about understanding, although that is a big part of it, but to experience having a shift in your body that allows you that freedom to not go the same route,
Mm-hmm.
to not have those same old feelings, to not be trapped in a pattern. It's so freeing, and it's such a beautiful way to really understand that the wisdom is, we have got that wisdom inside us. We've got everything that we need in the present moment to shift through something. And that's without delving into what's wrong, going into the past. We really can begin to go, how can I be more expansive? How can I make my body more spacious, more pleasant to live in?
Yeah.
And as you build on that day by day, that also gives you the strength to shift through stories. Because
Mm-hmm.
our identity is really, really important to us. And if you have also spent a long time with a particular story, that has also become your identity, that serves a purpose. It gives you a sense of belonging. It gives a meaning to your life. And if that's something that just is keeping you in a state of sadness or loneliness or fear or anger, that is not serving you anymore. But we also need to find a new story, shift through that, and feel safe enough to let go of those get the stuff that doesn't serve us, because we will hang on to it because it's familiar, even if it's not making us happy, even if it's keeping us in pain and unhealthy. You know, and I'm sure everyone's has stuff where you go, I know I keep doing that. I know it's bad for me. I know I end up feeling miserable. I just keep doing it. Work with somatics at that point. Get to know yourself at a deeper level through these amazing systems, such as human design, through astrology, through the 5 elements, because they give you the tools to whisper you into a place where you'll be more expansive and joyful and happier, because when we do that, we're going to create a world that's kinder, more compassionate, more tolerant. It is the answer, you know, really, to bring your best self. I know that's an overused thing, but the greatest version of you to life, because that's what you're contributing to a collective that can be the greatest version of itself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if that sparked anybody's curiosity and you want to dive deeper into somatic practices, we've got heaps on our YouTube channel. So go and explore. And if you want to go even deeper, then please come and join us on our membership. We've got 3 or 4 class libraries, I think, with all different diagnostics. So you can go into certain emotions, you can go into certain problems in terms of, you know, how to create a new habit, how to move through an old story. There are so many practices on there you can use, as well as our resource libraries. We've got coaching call libraries, we have workshop libraries, and we also host a live coaching call every month where we set a tone for the month. And then we have a monthly full moon coaching call as well, where we have the opportunity to share and discuss and talk about what's coming up for us. And that really is your opportunity in that full moon session to kind of get guidance as well. So if you're struggling with certain things, we can have a chat about what practices can support you and what sort of focuses you can bring into your life to create a foundation so you can thrive. So thank you very much for joining us. We are looking to get back to a much more regular schedule of YouTube content as well. So stay tuned and we will see you all very soon.
And please like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you found useful. Is there anything else you want to know more about? Thank you for joining us.